Hello! Welcome back to Spuds and Coasters. Today, I am going back into the world of Planet Coaster 2 creation with my latest theme park. So come along with me as I begin construction. It has been ages since my last Planet Coaster video, and to be honest, I am overjoyed that I'm making a grand return to this style of content. And yes, now that theme parks are back for the main season, expect a Thorpe Park vlog very soon on this channel. With this park, I wanted it to feel tucked away in the British countryside, so I tried my best to incorporate a cosy atmosphere to this entrance building. I just want to say a massive thank you to my viewers' continued support. My last video got the second highest view count of any of my videos across my channel, which is insane, so thank you all so much. As you can see here, I decided to have a sort of balcony slash walkway thing over the actual entrance itself, with two miniature towers either side. And as you can see, I did use the townhouse scenery pieces from the Sorcery downloadable content. I am a huge fan of this add-on pack because there is so much variety. Back to the park, you can now see me spelling out the name for this park, and it's going to be called Spud Park. I used the 3D lettering to make this name stand out, rather than using a standalone sign. And once again, I'm a massive fan that we have three-dimensional lettering as an option in this game. Now that we've finished installing the lettering for the sign, I began work on laying out planters on either side of this pathway to make this entrance plaza feel a lot more authentic and relaxing as a result. Sometimes I do really appreciate the little things in theme parks, such as these flower beds, as even though you may not realise it at first, but they do a whole lot of good to make a park seem complete and to a point where it's genuinely impeccably detailed. I also wanted to make sure that the towers on each side of the entrance were adequately decorated, so I swiftly began work on decorating these walls with windows and other various scenery pieces. Originally, I was going to have a window at the very top, however I did change that to a gilded crest to further build this charming character, to set the tone for the magical experiences guests were going to see. Like, haha, you thought I'd give spoilers away that easy? You'll have to stay tuned. As you can now observe, I put friezes on the wall to tease some themed areas, so remember the friezes, guys. However, also remember that there will be more themed areas than what meets the eye, so stay tuned for some announcements very soon on this channel. And as I'm decorating, consider subscribing. This channel is so close to 50 subscribers now, which is such an amazing thing. So if you do like this content and don't want to miss the future of this project, give us a sub. Now I'm adding various trees and fauna to further make this match the desired aesthetic of the Great British countryside. This was achieved via trees, bushes and rocks. The most challenging part of this was making sure you couldn't see the empty space behind this, and granted this will be less of a problem once the next part is in, but at this current point in time, it was still something I needed to pay attention to. As I may have previously stated in one of my former Planet Coaster 2 videos, I am so grateful that we have the variety of foliage we do, as in Planet Coaster 1, I felt as if my plant displays were very much repetitive. And you've just seen me install the pathway for this area, of which would be a main street with the centrepiece of King Coaster on the top of a fountain here. So I constructed this so I had a focal point to pay attention to throughout the construction of this street. For our first building on the street, we would have the staple at every theme park, the loos. I wanted this street to have a variety of design aesthetics represented within each building, so I decided upon using separate building materials per each building. For this, I would make it a brick building with some light decoration to boot. Moving past that, I designed the back of the entrance archway for detail, just to make sure that you could see detail in case the first building on that side had a different height. This is a really good trick to remember if you want to make a realistic park in this game, as it goes a long way after completion. And it doesn't even need to be much either. A few windows and a bit of ivy can do the trick. But of course, our little entrance archway would not be complete without three-dimensional lettering spelling out goodbye. I wanted this in place, as I did feel like it may seem out of place if there was text on the other side of the building, and it is yet another nice little detail for guests to notice at the end of their visit to Spud Park. But something I wanted to sort out directly after this was to cover up the empty space between the toilet block and the entrance building. Or is the entrance an archway or a building? I'll let you decide in the comments below. For the space, I reused the townhouse bricks to tie it in nicely with that entrance structure or whatever it is. Another Planet Coaster tip for people is, if people can't see it, don't build it! You will see throughout the construction of this street that almost all of the buildings are missing back walls, and only a few have sloped pieces viewable. This is ultimately a decision to help keep the build limit for as long as possible, as I know this may become a problem the further I progress through this project. Also, it says that there are 2 buildings for this, but that was purely to get a very slight angle change on the buildings, which is oh so useful when designing a street or a market on a curved pathway. So keep that in mind for the next time you're designing something like that. And we have just set up the lighting for the entrance as well. When I said this would be in the countryside of England, I immediately thought of a building to go on this main street. Wetherspoons. So I jumped straight in designing this, using photos of actual Wetherspoons across the UK for reference. And due to Wetherspoons usually having names in relation to the area they're in, or someone famous to do with the main sort of activity in that area, I decided upon giving it the name the Adna Thompson, in honour of the founding father of the roller coaster, Lamarcus Adna Thompson. The stucco walls I used provide an excellent aesthetic, one that I definitely could see as an actual Wetherspoons exterior, matching the aesthetic of quite a few photos I used for reference material. I tried my best to make it look as realistic as I could, despite guests not actually able to enter the building. Or maybe I should go back to it. Tell you what, if this video gets 10 likes, I will make the Wetherspoons a restaurant Planet Coaster 2 guests can go in. I'm not showing you the whole decoration of this Wetherspoons, but here was the finished result. I was so pleased with it turning out the way it did, but with no time to spare, I went straight on to the next building, of which would be I'm going to try and do the jingle, hold on. Just a memento. For this Just a Memento, I used a very similar brick to the loo building I built earlier, and as much as it did appear quite a blocky building in the end, it definitely could have gone much worse, so I'm definitely not complaining. Just to fill the gap between these 2 buildings, I put a very small facade of a painted brick building. This would be adorned with a door and maybe a window or 2, but I wanted to keep this simple as it was definitely not the main attraction of this street. Well, not that any buildings were meant to be standout buildings, but whatever. My goal was to make it that there wasn't any free space, and I was really trying my best to make it immersive at the same time. As you've definitely seen already, majority of the buildings on this street will be facades, purely because if there were queues to use these buildings, Main Street would become a roadblock. So I ended up with only about 5 shops at the end. Well, at least the ones guests can actually use. Also, if you would like to see more on my channel, check out my videos on the most underrated and overrated roller coasters I've personally ridden. After finishing this next facade, I was experimenting with a lot of potentials for this next building, which will actually bring me on to something I want Frontier to add into Planet Coaster 2. That is, hotels. I used them quite a lot in the original Planet Coaster game, so I would absolutely adore if they brought it back, and I'm sure some of you agree with me. By the way, if you have any suggestions for this park, comment them below. I'd love to see what you guys have in mind for this project, and who knows, some of your suggestions may even become a reality in this park. Once I had abandoned the billboard idea, I settled on the idea of creating a hotel facade that would go by the name of the Stargazer Hotel. Like majority of the other buildings in the main street, I decided to keep the exterior as detailed as I can without inflicting damage on the build limit too much. I was so adamant that I needed to preserve this build limit, as it is very restrictive in this game, so I needed to cut corners where it is deemed absolutely necessary. For our next facade on the opposite side of this street, I was actually quite inspired by an Italian townhouse. As much as I knew I wouldn't hit the nail on its head for the first try, I persevered and tried to recreate one to the best of my capability. I used a stucco building set a lot in this street, but in all honesty, it looks amazing, so how could I not? For this building, I wanted to maintain the brick aesthetic that I've been going for with the Stargazer Hotel and the subsequent Italian townhouse. This was to house a Haya Sushi. This would be a similar height to the hotel facade, so it'd save me from having to build back walls, as I mentioned earlier. In fact, I think it was around this point in construction I settled on only changing the height of the roof slope, but keeping the two 4-metre wall parts in, just with alternating materials. I then proceeded to place trees behind these buildings, so that in future pathways and themed areas, the backs of these buildings, or rather lack thereof, would not be seen. This is always important to do with the park, as it does make it feel more cosy and secluded in a way as a result. Plus, points for realism, as not many theme parks are made on a flat slab of grass with no trees. But then, it hit me that I'd forgotten to theme up the Haya Sushi, let alone I didn't even put a single sign on there, so of course I had to go back and finish that off. I wanted a similar look to the Justin Memento with this building, and we are very nearly done with this street now, which is insane. But in episode 2, I will build the first 2 rides in this park and reveal the first themed area. However, I need your help. Should I attempt to make an original theme, or try and base the themed area off of an IP? I'll let you decide in the comments. Here is yet another building facade, would you believe it, which ended up being remarkably similar to the aforementioned Italian townhouse inspired building. I really liked this style because it really fitted in with a lot of design ideas. Also, would you prefer shorter and more frequent updates of this park, or longer but less frequent updates? And now to round off the final aspects of today's episode, we have the final 2 buildings. For these, I would use the lime plaster wall set on both sides of this street. These would individually house shops as well. I really hope that you've enjoyed seeing the construction of this park taking shape. I have certainly enjoyed putting it together so far. The shop I put on the left hand side of this street was a Latte Love. I'm so glad we have loads of new food outlet brands in this game, instead of exclusively having the original brands, but I would love to see a few more pop up, to give parks an even larger variety of shops to choose from. These buildings will be lavishly decorated with windows and other various decor, tying it into the aesthetic of the rest of Main Street. However, I did decide that on the other side of this street would not have a retrospective shop in it. And with that concludes the very beginning of Spud Park. I cannot wait to delve back into this style of content, and I hope you will all join me through this journey. And make sure you stick around for episode 2, where, like I mentioned, I will start installing rides and announce the first themed area. Once again, thanks for watching. If you have enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing, and I will see you in my next video, right here on Spuds and Coasters. Bye everyone!